Welcome to Memphis Machine,
a Muddy Pig production. I'm Jonathan Bass.
And I'm Carl Casperson, and together we're looking to show off the creative sights and sounds of Memphis, Tennessee.
Amen.
This episode with James Dukes has been sponsored by Snakebite Company, makers of the original Snakebite bottle opener and Mamba bar tending tool. They are 100% made in the US of A. Snakebite loves making products and apparel for the happy hours, the after hours, and the weekends. When it's your time to relax and be yourself, check them out at Snakebite Co. That's snakebiteco.com, and on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Snakebite Co. Get inspired with Redwire. They are experts in audiovisual design and installation in the Mid-South. Redwire Audio Video specializes in the design, installation, rental, and support of high-quality and affordable custom audio, video, lighting, broadcast, and control systems for worship facilities and large public venues. You can reach out to them at redwireav.com.
And of course, Ernestine and Hazel's, our favorite bar in Memphis.
The favorite.
Oh, man.
We haven't mentioned that we play there every Sunday night, have we?
We play there every Sunday night.
We need to mention that. But apart from that, just if you come to Memphis any day of the week, you need to come to Ernestine and Hazel's.
Yes.
Hey, in this episode, we got to hang out with Mr. James Dukes, a.k.a. IMAKEMADBEATS, a.k.a. Unapologetic. This man and his crew are on the cusp of greatness. They're already putting out brilliant music. I'm waiting for the world.
Just music. I mean, everything.
No, everything. No, yeah. The takeaway from this interview was that this man's work ethic, his systematic way of achieving excellence and quality is fantastic. You need to put your ears on this if you have any aspirations to build something of quality with a crew of people and have consistency in your product, in your art. I would listen to James.
It was a very inspiring conversation.
Very inspirational. Really huge thanks again to him, and looking forward to all the good things coming from James and his crew. All right, well, we finally made it. Welcome to Memphis Machine, podcast on Memphis arts, music, and the happenings that is Memphis indigenous. Our special guest today, James Dukes, a.k.a. IMAKEBEATS.
I make mad beats.
Mad Beats.
At Dirty Sock Studios.
We are here. This is a lovely creative space, by the way.
Thank you, man.
This is mine is so generic, and this is not. This is lovely. This is really cool.
This is actually this was actually me saying I can do stuff with my eyes.
Yeah.
See, for years I only trusted my ears, never trusted my eyes.
Oh yeah.
And this was me saying, nah, I'm gonna design something with my eyes. And this is what happened. Stuff ended up on the ceiling, all kind of crazy stuff. So.
This could you say this is a philosophy of aesthetics informing sound as well?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
This room is, to me, visual jazz.
Yeah.
Organized chaos. Yeah.
But you also have your artist in here as well, right? I mean, this is the
the
creative.
Between here and Studio B, definitely.
Excellent.
But this is where most of the stuff that I produce and record happens. Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, shall we start? Last podcast we started with a little biography. Start from the beginning.
That's a good place to start. I think I said that same joke last time.
Well, if you were to point to the beginning, how would you describe your initiation into the arts?
Man. So the arts. Oh yeah, you phrase it in a way to where I got to start from a different position than I would in most interviews. My dad is an artist. He used to paint and write poetry, and so when I was a kid, you want to be like your dad. So I definitely used to draw all the time. I used to draw my own comic books, and anything that I wanted, I would draw it. And so that's pretty much where I guess I started becoming creative, and I won a couple contests in school and stuff like that. And that's where I really started to unleash being creative and being any kind of artist. It didn't really go into music until my big brother. He he just loved rapping, and he loved hip hop, and he would make his own beats on a boombox, and I would just watch him. That's one. I think that's probably the coolest thing about being a little brother, is that you get the closest to doing stuff and being someone else without doing that or being them, because you're just right there with them. And you get to absorb the effects. If he does well, then people think I'm cool as well. You know, meanwhile, I didn't do anything.
Yes.
You know, so you know, he was rapping all the time, and you know, he had a reputation, and we started making beats, and the rest is history. You know? So it's an interesting ride. Yeah.
Did you say your mom? She taught at SUNY Purchase?
Yeah. She lived in New York for a while, and she taught up there at Purchase. She taught math. She taught I think it was, I can't remember which math she taught, but she taught up there for a few years, and then she was like an administrator for a while too. So yeah, but that was I didn't grow up. I visited my mom during the summers. I spent the majority of my childhood here in Memphis with my dad. And my mom was, you know, either in New York or DC or somewhere, or in Baltimore or something like that.
Did your brother continue on in music? Is he still?
Oh yeah, I mean, his journey is probably crazier than mine. You know, my brother was the most skipping school, having no love for, you know, any sort of education, anything ever got, ever. And now he's an instructor at Full Sail University. So.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, yeah.
So
delicious irony. That's
yeah,
great.
I think it's even more ironic is just that when he was 18, he wanted to go to Full Sail and we couldn't afford it.
Right.
And so now they pay him. So
that's fantastic. Are they still Florida based?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's
still in
terrific.
Orlando.
Oh, that's
So,
great.
Yeah. So just followed him, man. He was rapping and making beats for a long time, and when he was 21, he was on top of the world, like in Orlando at the time, which is where he had moved down to, and then I had moved down to shortly afterwards.
About what year are we talking here?
That was, I don't know, he was 2002 maybe. He was on top of the world. I mean, like, he was the most well-known battle rapper in Orlando. He won. He was on the radio station. We would go down to Miami, and people would recognize us on the street. Like, it was crazy. And you know, we had radio station, you know, people trying to manage us. And again, like, at this point, I'm not even like really good at what I do. I'm just I'm his brother. You know what I'm saying? So I gotta be dope as well. You know what I mean? and I'm just absorbing it all and just having fun. Yeah, you know, he still does music. You know, he still makes beats and still puts out records, and we still collaborate every now and then. So,
Jonathan, you got some notes there?
Yeah, I was maybe thinking about going, talking about your move to Long Island and
oh yeah,
working in Manhattan and Quad.
Yeah.
However you want to take that.
Yeah, sure. I was in Florida. I was at UCF, and I had just gotten the opportunity to. At this point, I was so done. Honestly, I had no inspiration for school. I was about halfway through a computer science degree, and I had absolutely no inspiration to finish school. I just did not care. All I cared about was music, and everything else was holding me back. And by this time, I was better. By this time, I had gained notoriety. I had began to do things nationally and internationally via the internet. I had some stuff even on the radio down there. I had a #1 record that I produced for like, it was like 7 weeks straight, like on the radio down there. And I just wanted to do more, you know. I got the opportunity to transfer to New York, to Long Island, to a school called SUNY Old Westbury in Long Island. And, you know, it didn't take much convincing because I knew I would be closer to the music industry and somewhere where I could actually make the ideas that I wanted to happen. And so, you know, after getting the first idea to do that, maybe like 9 months later, I was gone. And moved up there, started going to school, and started getting to Manhattan. It's anytime I could be there. Sometimes just to walk around, because that's the kind of place it is. Like, I remember the first time I went to Manhattan, I just got off the train, and Steve Buscemi was sitting there chilling. He just looked at me, and he was like, "What's up?" I was like, "Yo, it's you." And he was like, "Yeah." And you know, that's how Manhattan was. You know, you could run into anybody anytime. And I found that there was no time where I would randomly go to Manhattan where something didn't happen. Some kind of opportunity didn't present itself. It just didn't. It made me think, like, if you go to Manhattan, something will happen. Like, the odds are in my favor. You know, history shows that this is true. So at any time I could, I would just go to Manhattan and see what could happen. By the time I was out in Long Island, and I got it's actually a very interesting part of the story is because a good friend now, a guy named Randy, he was actually looking for my partner in crime who was supposed to move to New York with me. A guy named Midas. He was supposed to move to New York with me. We were supposed to be a duo, and we were supposed to come to New York and take over the globe. Didn't happen that way. It was just me. And my man Randy was actually hitting me up looking for him. And I was like, he hasn't moved up yet, you know. And he was like, all right, cool, well, let me know. You know what I'm saying? And then a month later, he would hit me up, and, has he come through yet? Man. All right, well, you know, Randy, he was an intern at the time at Quad Studios. And one day he hit me up, and he was just like, man, Midas ain't came through yet? All right, man. Well, look, Dipset and some of these other rappers are gonna be coming through. It's like, look, man, you got some beats with soul samples and stuff? I was like, yeah, of course. He's like, yeah, man, come through. You know what I'm saying? These guys, they eat up. They just be making mixtapes, and they always need beats, and man, just bring a whole bunch of beats with you. I was like, all right, cool, man. So I brought my iPad, which was just doubled as my hard drive, and 30 gigs, just dumped hundreds of beats on it, and left to go to Manhattan. And I got to Times Square, walked 5.5 blocks north, and went to Quad. Got in the studio, there was nobody there except for Randy and somebody sitting in the lobby, a good friend of mine named Jamelia, a couple other interns, and no rappers came through. And so I was just sitting there, and it was weird. I'm gonna tell you it was the weirdest feeling, because okay, we're in Manhattan. I'm in this $1 million facility. Now, I had never been to a studio like this in my life, ever. You know, at this time, the only studios I'd ever went to was like, you know, my bedroom, maybe some other guy's bedroom, you know, to record over his house. But that was it. So I walk into this room, I see this 1 million buttons, 1 million lights. You know,
and the history of Quad too. I mean,
yeah, I mean, exactly. The history of Quad is very deep, and so I'm just kind of wowed by it. But you know what everybody's doing there? The 3 interns and the person at the front desk, they're all looking at YouTube videos of like people doing stupid stuff. I think they were like doing dances and stuff. And I just remember thinking, like, what? What part of the game is this? Like, you know, and you know, I'm a super adult now, so I know to come off. I know how to come off is normal when I need to, but and even then, people are like, you're not doing it well. But still, I know how to do it, but back then I did not. You know what I'm saying? And so when I saw people doing things like this, you gotta understand, like music removed me from society. So, you know,
in a good way or not a good way.
I think both sides.
Okay.
I think in a good and a bad way. But it removed me from society in a way that set me up to learn things people already knew a little late in life. Like common things like small talk. You know, I was definitely deep into my 20s before I learned how to small talk and talk about the weather, the game. I didn't, you know what I'm saying? I didn't know how to do that.
Banter.
Yeah, I didn't. I was just.
It's okay.
I was very odd when it comes to stuff like that.
Yeah, that stuff is.
Well, yeah,
I'm not good at
I'm at a point
either,
now where it's like, I'm good on that. But at that point in my life, man, it would have came in handy to know how to do that stuff. But anyway, so they're sitting there and they're laughing at this stuff and they're joking, blah, blah, whatever. And half of me is thinking, join in with them. Like, this is, become cool with them and who knows what can happen, right? And then the other half is me is looking at the studio and nobody's in there. And I'm just like, all right, man, I can't, I'm sorry. Hey, man, you think I can go in the studio and just load up some stuff on Pro Tools? I just want to listen. That's it. You know? And my man Randy, they were so into this YouTube video. They were like, yeah, go ahead, man. Yeah, it's all good. Go ahead. So I'm like, all right. So I walk into Studio C, which is on the 10th floor of the building, and I start pulling up my Pro Tools sessions. The multi-outs were normal to the first, I think, 24 inputs on the console. So I'm like doing my first analog mix ever. Just twisting, I don't know what's going on. You know what I'm saying? I'm just twisting knobs, and about an hour and a half later, I'm like, this is sounding, really good. My man Randy walks into the room. He runs into the room. And he's like, "Hey Nemo, you gotta go, man. You gotta get out. You gotta hide or something." I was like, "What's going on?" He says, "The owner's about to come up here, and you're not supposed to be here."
Oh, jeez.
So
you said it was okay.
At this point, I'm like, I just gotta grab stuff. I don't know what's going on.
Will small talk save me now?
Yeah, I should have learned. So yeah, I started. I try to get my stuff out of there quick, and then eventually I realized, it was too late. The elevator pops open. Ricky, who is the owner, he walks into the studio and he looks at me and he says, and he looks at Randy and he says, "Who is this?" And Randy says, "This is my friend Nemo," and he was like, "Okay." And so I guess he had heard some of the stuff being played with Quad, man. You could hear people's whole life in the elevator. Like, you could hear the change in their pockets. I mean, just only because we had the volume up. I had the volume up super loud, by the way, so it was kind of ridiculous. But I guess he had heard some of the stuff, and as he just looked at me and he said, "Hey, what was that stuff you were playing?" And I said, "Some beats that I made, And he looked at me and he said, "Did you mix that?" I was like, "Yeah," And then he asked me to hit play. I hit play. And then he said, "Have you ever thought about an internship here?"
Yeah.
And now Randy is like right behind him over his shoulder. So I can clearly see Randy while, like, let's say you're him.
Right.
I can clearly see Randy like right over his shoulder without even looking at him, peripheral. And again, I'm a very truthful guy. So when he asked me, my initial response, I was going to say no, because I had never thought about that. I just want to make beats. But Randy was over his shoulder and he was like, "Yes, you have." Saying yes, And so I said yes. And he said, "Yeah, man, just get us a resume and we'll see what's up." And shortly afterwards, I was interning at Quad, and that's how all of this stuff started.
That's great.
Yeah.
So that's great.
Any like first like engineers maybe you remember a few that
yeah, there's two.
Remember working with mentors.
Okay, so that brings in a very interesting.
Yeah, those two questions. Sorry.
No, it's fine. That's a very interesting thing because, so there were two engineers who immediately caught my attention. One guy named Benjamin Arundel, who he mixed a lot of Busta Rhymes and stuff, some of the Roots stuff. He had a lot of. I mean, you can check his name. He's got a lot of credits. But he mixed a lot of the kind of stuff that I like to hear. You know, the texture of it. And it's, you know, even though I'm interning with, you know, the top thing I could become was an engineer here. You know, let's be clear. Like in my mind, the top thing was being a producer.
Right.
Like, so I'm here and I'm learning all of these things or whatever. But in my mind, I'm still thinking beats. That's it. You know, and you know, so Benjamin Arundel, he was the kind of producer. I mean, a kind of engineer to where I wanted to learn from him specifically because learning from him could make my beats sound the way I wanted them to sound. Mm-hmm. All the other engineers that I would meet, they were very good at mixing things that were already 2496. Like they were coming out of a Korg Triton in a crispy way. You know, my sound is a little bit more textured. The way I like to describe it is just a little bit more dusty. You know, and a lot of the new engineers there, as crazy as it's surrounded by, you know, with 4 analog consoles and all this analog gear, just from hearing them, I felt like they didn't know this sound, you know. And I specifically remember a DJ named Tony Touch. He came in to Studio C, and there was an engineer and an intern. Both of them I assumed were way smarter than me. You gotta understand, I was the only intern that didn't go to Full Sail or SAE or whatever. I just
showed up
and just did the work. I don't, you know. So I felt super lucky, and I felt less than compared to all the other guys because they came in saying terminologies and all kind of stuff, and they were just, you know, just saying stuff I didn't know what it was, and I'm just like, man, I'm clearly, you know, the low guy in the totem pole here. I got to get my stuff together, and I just remember Tony Touch came in, and he wanted to hook up a turntable and record a record into Pro Tools, and I'm the second assistant. When you're the second assistant, that basically means shut up, don't say anything, don't be seen, man. Like if we ask you to get some ketchup, have it in 2 seconds. That's it. Like this is the extent of what you're supposed to do here. And so I remember, you know, Tony Touch was like, yeah, let's look this up. They got a Technics 1200, and I just remember that they took the RCAs from the 1200, you know, and did like a conversion from the RCA to 1/4-inch cables, and then just like ran it through API and tried to go into the console with it, and the volume was extremely low. And I just remember thinking, that's dope that the SSL can, you know, has that kind of impedance, you know. I'll wait for them to turn it on or to hit a switch. I don't know. They know something I don't know. But I know when I'm hooking up a turntable, you can't do that. Mm-hmm. All right? You know, I need to go through a mixer or something, or, you know, a phono amp or something.
Yeah.
Right? Man, they were doing this for like 30 minutes. And Tony Touch starts to get mad, like, what's going on here? I thought this was, you know, quad. How come you guys don't know how to hook up a turntable? And I said, hey, do you guys have a mixer? Maybe a Vestax? Like, oh yeah, we have one of those downstairs. You should get that. And they brought it upstairs, and I hooked it up, and all of a sudden it worked. And I remember I walked away from that session, and I thought to myself, I'm not as dumb as I thought I was. Like, there are clear advantages I have that I didn't go to school, but I've been doing this for a decade. You know, I've been doing. I literally started making music and recording when I was 14 years old. I got my first clients when I was 17. You know, and we broke things, figuring things out. You know, so
could you say that was a moment when the pressure of not feeling like you had a pedigree background, but you were a guy who was doing things, and maybe did that tell you like, hey, this is about just getting it done?
Exactly. What I learned then was just that, you know, sand the floor. You were learning to block. You didn't know. You know, you know, there were things that I had been learning that I just didn't know.
Like muscle memory.
Exactly. You know, and once I acknowledged that, everything changed. Like my confidence, and it just meant that maybe I didn't know the word. You know, maybe I didn't know the terminology.
But you knew it had to be done.
Right. Yeah. All the time. And that's what, you know, and then I just started to go and learn the terminologies to be able to communicate better. But, you know, once I did that, and it was mostly just about gaining confidence. Once I gained confidence in myself, things started to change for me there. And then I remember, you know, I got a little bit of false confidence, and and then I had to get shut down again. My man, Benjamin Arundel, he was he is an engineer, and an amazing one. And I got my first assistant gig with him. And Scram Jones, I can't remember. I think it was Scram Jones. Yeah, he had a drummer come in, and that was my first session. And man, I knew everything about the patch bay. I was ready for war. Let's do it. You ready, Nemo? Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. So he's like, yeah, man, patch this. Now, he had me patch something on a floor patch, which was not the patch bay that I thought I knew. And I was like, okay. You know, and I started to do it, and I was messing up, and wires were bad, and just everything was just terrible. Oh. And he totally embarrassed me. He totally in front of the client was like, man, I'm gonna have to be the assistant and the engineer. Go sit down. Ugh. You know, and then he showed me he was talking trash the whole time. Just, you know, even the client was like, hey man, you all right? It was bad.
Hey, so maybe for listeners that might not know, can you? It sounds like there's a hierarchy.
Yes.
All right. So can you break that down?
Yes, indeed. So at the bottom of the bottom is interns. Like, you're scum. You know what I'm saying? You're dirt. You're nothing. You should just be happy you're there. Above interns is anybody doing a second assist job, right? Second assist job is essentially an intern who has been drafted in to learn in a serious environment, right? When you're just an intern and you're floating around, you better get the best fruits and you better, you know, mop the floor. A second assist is, you know, okay, let's get this guy in here learning. An assistant is, which is the next level up. That's the number one goal for interns right off top. It's not to be an engineer. You want to be an assistant, because the assistant is the most important person in studio, right? And an engineer doesn't have to know the studio. The assistant does, right? So the assistant needs to know how to patch this, you know, where the mics are, how to do this, blah, 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 whatever. How to set up. The assistant sets up the session, backs up the session, takes care of the client. The assistant needs to know everything the engineer knows technically, and then the engineer is the talent in the ear, right? So you might have an engineer who will do all the technical stuff, sometimes not. Sometimes it's just like Quincy Jones or a Barry Gordy, right? You know, they're the minds.
Yeah.
Right? That's the engineer. So you have your assistant. As an intern, you're seeking to become an assistant. You want to become that all-knowing and extremely dependable person who can see the future. right? Because that's what you have to do. Your job as the assistant is to make the engineer look like a genius.
Anticipate
Exactly.
everything. Right,
everything. Like, and that's why oftentimes if you were an intern, the people who would get picked up to become a second assist or to, to be taught directly from an assistant would be the interns that showed that kind of foresight. So, for example, I remember getting sent to McDonald's to go and get a number 2 and with, a Coke. And and so when I went to McDonald's to go get a number 2 and a Coke, I had the number 2 with the Coke. I came back with packets of ketchup, mustard, salt, pepper, 2 straws, extra napkins, and virtually any condiment that they had, right? And so the idea was just that, I don't know what you want on your burger, right? But whatever you could ever want on your burger, you didn't have to, not only did you not have to ask me to get it, but, it will just be available to you, right? Off top. Like, and I always thought like that. When they sent me to Whole Foods to go get Missy Elliott's, fruit bowl, I would always choose, other interns would go and get fruit and put it in the basket. I would go get the most attractive looking fruit ever. I would take off the little stickers off the apples. I would go and shine it up, right? And then I would create this kind of like design with the napkin around that it's sitting in. And it was those kinds of things that got me out of internship faster than the other interns. It wasn't, he knows how to engineer, or he's, it was.
Yeah, detail oriented.
Exactly.
An awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just, I was very thankful. And, I at that point in life, maybe a couple years before that, somebody had told me something. They said, how you do anything is how you do everything. And that just circulated in my mind, to, at any moment, give examples of how detailed I thought, even if it was just getting a fruit basket, So, yeah, those were the levels. Engineer is the top level, of course. That's when you're the big dog. You can just chill and just, make commands and things happen for you. But you got to deliver. You got to swing the home run and deliver the product and be very professional while doing it. So, that was Quad, and it was without a doubt the most. It was definitely the launch pad for where I am, in terms of, and everywhere, in terms of opportunity, and all the way to just mindset. I went up there as Nemo, which was a childhood nickname. I came back as IMAKEMADBEATS, because that was just a different, I went after the things that I wanted and I believed in a little bit differently.
That also exposed you to working with music beyond samples. I mean, like you said, drums. Did you get to work with strings, acoustic, like all of it?
Yeah. I mean, everything, that was initially, it was just recording it, but, again, once you inspire confidence in the people around you, even if you're just an intern, once you move in a way to where people believe in you and they feel good in believing in you, they'll look out for you. That's why, every time it's people, feel like that they're all alone or that no one is trying to help them or that they don't get good looks in terms of opportunities, honestly, and hey man, if I'm being transparent here, I'm a guy from very humble beginnings. So I understand lack of opportunity very well. You know what I'm saying? But I will say this, like, whenever I made myself a glaring thing for opportunity to pause and say, hey, it came around. You know, whenever I didn't give opportunity a reason to second guess, it came around, you know. And there, you know, I was always working hard. I never sat down, and I was always trying to learn something from somebody. So one day a guy comes in the studio and he says, hey, you guys know any young guys here who make beats or program music that are like really dedicated and like sleep in music? And everybody in the room, there's like 8 people, all of them pointed at me. And I was mopping the floor as an intern, and it was unanimous. It's like him. And he comes up to me and he says, hey man, I'm gonna be doing some music for a couple things here and there, man. I have a studio out in Jersey. You know, do you have an hourly rate? I'm like, what? I'm trying to scrape together $3 to go get a hot dog. You know what I'm saying? Like, what? And I said, it depends. I'm gonna get back to you. You know,
right? Good answer. Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, man, give me a call. And he gave me his card. And he's a producer. He did a lot of dance remixes and a lot of remixes for labels all across the world. And so I hit him up. I said, hey man, I can do $25 an hour. You know what I'm saying?
25 an hour.
I said $25 an hour. And he said, cool. So when can we meet? And immediately I'm like, damn.
Yes.
Should have asked for more. So anyway, I ended up getting up in his studio, and like, you know, he would essentially tell me like the kinds of beats or productions that he wanted, and then he would just maybe go pick up his son, or he would just chill and do whatever. Every now and then he might come back and say, make that a little bit smoother or something like that, and just go about his business, and you know, and just leave me there making beats. And so that's where I really learned to like really diversify, or to be, you know, versatile in what I was making, because we had to make a whole bunch of different kinds of stuff: rock stuff, pop stuff, you know, reggaeton stuff, dance stuff, anything, because it was all for all kinds of labels for all across the world. Some of the licensing stuff for commercials and stuff like that. So,
like music libraries, is it?
Yeah. So,
okay.
That was when I really said, all right, man, I got to level up. I got to be better. And so I would just come, you know, I remember the first time I left there, I was happy, but I was also like very intimidated, because I couldn't just do the kinds of stuff that I just had in my head. Like, I had to like really, you know, if somebody said like salsa, I had to know what that meant. You know what I'm saying? And go and execute that like that, you know?
Yeah.
And so that for me meant I had to really pay attention to music. Yeah.
I want real quick touch on a nugget of wisdom I picked up on, and I would say, in contrast to the pressure of trying to get noticed, the pressure of becoming successful, the pressure in trying to be a somebody in this crazy music business. I think what I heard you emphasize is being a valuable asset in contributing to whatever it is, whatever situation. And that might seem obvious, but I think that's just, I mean, I hear that. I love playing bass. because I actually love what bass contributes in doing to the track and doing to a song. You know, like whatever style, Motown, jazz, whether a nerdy little jazz Sunday thing we do, I love how the bass contributes. And my favorite bass players, like in town, like Jackie, you know, who constantly preach this gospel of like being able to hear the entire track, hear what your part's doing, and how it contributes.
Yeah.
So and the discipline of not doing something that's going to throw it all out of whack and draw attention, or maybe not enough, you know. But I love what you just said. And in honing skills, being aware. You said, you know, like the fruit basket and being asked to do mundane things, but being aware as to how you're contributing to the overall scene. That's great.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
So why didn't you stay in New York? I mean, it sounds like this is the place.
Okay, so I left there. You know, it's interesting because as crazy as New York is, you know, it's funny. Like I can, you know, New York's the kind of place where you can do, you know, one day's work and just walk out of wherever you worked at with $2,000 cash in your pocket, and because it's New York, it might as well be $20. You know, you know,
might be half your rent.
Might as well, yeah. So, you know, so there's that, but that's not actually, you know, I didn't really leave there for any other reason than I had talked to some family, and in short, man, you know, I just felt like chasing my dreams. I had lost touch with some family that I realized I had gone through some things that had really let me know that music wasn't the most important thing in my life. And that, even me saying it right now, it's eerie for me to say it, because the majority of my life, there's no way you could have convinced me otherwise. It's just what it was. Nothing. I mean, food was all a joke compared to music. You know, to the point where, you know, I've been in and out the hospital because of the unusual levels of focus that keep you from eating. You know, so, you know, in that's, you know, in the years of me chasing my goals and being proud of myself, to be honest, I'm a kid, you know, from interesting parts of Orange Mound who had to go to White Station every day and see people who had things and took it for granted that you never had in your life. You know what I'm saying? I mean, simple things like getting dropped off and, you know, fruit roll-ups, you know. I saw that on TV, you know what I'm saying? I didn't have that, you know what I'm saying? And so to go from where we were going through to me being a successful person that took my own career into my own hands in New York, in Manhattan, it was, man, I was on top of the world. I could go down. I remember one, it was ridiculous. I remember one time I went to Red Lobster. So I've never been on some rapper stuff where like you just, you know, let money rain from the sky or nothing like that. But one time I went to Red Lobster and I took my friend, my best friend in college, name is Iman. And we went to Red Lobster after I sold my first beat, like into the thousands of dollars level. And I remember I gave the waiter a $90 tip. And I was just like, what is wrong with me? What is going on here? $90? I just gave somebody a $90 tip. Yo, I'm wilding, like I'm crazy, you know, but, you know, those were the kinds of, I was very proud of myself that I essentially I made it, you know, I made it. And, but the downside of that is that, you know, getting up there was hard. There was so much psychological pressure on me to like not fail. You know, because so many people had believed in me because of my drive, because of, since first grade, some woman has always put me to the side of the class and been like, James, you're smart, and, people believed in you so much and you got there. And so now the fear kicked in, right? The fear of failure, the fear of like letting people down. You got up here. What are you going to do now? And New York is interesting because New York will never stop punching you in the chest. Like, you can be Sylvester, you can be Rocky, but New York will be Drago all day and keep punching you and wonder why you won't stay down. And so while I would say I was winning, but I was definitely taking all of its punches. Those things pushed me to an edge psychologically that was probably my darkest time in my life. Because I got sick. I had some infections internally. I lost self-value. I was in a very bad place. When I was growing up, my mom and dad were both had bouts of depression. And so I'll never say I was depressed because maybe I was, but the definition of depression to me is what they were going through. So I was not as bad as them.
But would you say your success at that time, your self estimated level of success, had you were neglecting things?
Without a doubt, I was neglecting things. I was personally, I was not eating properly. I was not doing anything properly. I was not taking care of myself at all. I wasn't, I was definitely on living the lifestyle of I would only eat if I had accomplished something kind of thing. And if I didn't, then my punishment was to not eat.
Not sleeping.
No sleep.
Can you point to a moment where that turned around, that something that brought you out of it?
In the hospital. In the hospital, I was, I got to this point where I couldn't walk without stumbling or, because I would just get dizzy. And it was a dark time because at the time I was very much alone in New York. So I had to walk myself to the hospital. So I was messed up in the game and I was walking to Kings County Hospital. I'm dizzy, and then I gotta wait in the ER or whatever for hours and it was just a very, it's one thing to be sick. It's another thing to feel like you're going through it all alone.
Oh wow. Yeah.
And I couldn't work. I was an entrepreneur. I didn't have any sick days or whatever. I couldn't work. And so that just made it worse for me. All I could do was read. And so I read Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And, there's a lot of things in that book that really helped me turn some things around. And I still have this book. And in it are some of the things I was scribbling, waiting in the hospital. And, they remind me of where I was, But halfway through that book, I realized, my life is bigger than music. That, my goals were not more important than me. And sure enough, once I got better with that new mindset and intention behind it, I think is when I started to make some of the best music I had ever made. And it's when a lot of more successes started to happen. But shortly after that, I got a call from some family. And at this point, because of my new mindset and because of my new value system, it was time for me to leave because of my family, you know, and I needed to be with my family. And while I was doing fine in New York and I was healthy again, again, and you got to walk yourself to the hospital, you deal with new levels of lonely that you never thought of. So I wanted to be around my family. And so I came back, and it was a trip. Yeah.
So you'd say that now, I mean, like, do you feel like you've achieved a balance with career, family?
Yeah, I think I'm as balanced. I think I'm more balanced than I have ever been. I'll say that. I think I can do better. I think I'm forever gonna be trying to achieve the perfect balance. I don't think, there's some things. That's one thing I realized as an adult, is that there are some things that you're just gonna get and that's it, and then there's some things you're gonna be chipping away at for the rest of your life.
It's a tricky thing, and with a lot of musicians and artists, and I'm sure in a lot of other fields, but to let that profession, but since we're all musicians, we know this subject. Let your successes or failures define you. It's sounds like what you're describing. Once you get past that, it's a lot more. It's peaceful.
It really is. It's. I mean, I'm not gonna act like I've completely gotten over that. I'm not gonna say that.
It's a struggle, man.
It's totally. It is. It's every now and then, I'll drift back. Into that kind of thing. But I'm surrounded by love now. You know what I'm saying? I'm surrounded by the right people. Surrounded by people who care. I mean, my dog, she's great. You know what I'm saying? Boudreaux. It's impossible to continue thinking these things when I look at my son now. So it's not over. I feel like, you guys ever seen A Beautiful Mind?
Yeah, that was a while ago, but
yeah. So all of those things I just mentioned are the people who follow him around that nobody else can see. Right? I'm forever gonna see them, and I just have to keep going. So
it's interesting. But so you describe, you're chasing the dream, you're in the dream. The dream starts to bite you. And so then you have. I mean, could you almost call it you have a crisis, almost a breakthrough, a spiritual awakening, some type.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, that's without a doubt. You know what I'm saying? That's that was the that was probably the most definite crossroads in my entire life, in terms of like, okay, I can self-destruct or I can change.
Had you seen anyone else, artist or other peers that you've worked with, continue on and not survive, or say have a worse episode? Or
no, I not personally.
Yeah.
I mean, you hear about artists, you know what I'm saying? You hear, I mean, there are plenty of famous artists who I learned they went through similar things. But the thing about me is just that, like, I've always been the scarily driven guy. It's very rare for me to be around somebody who is clearly more driven than me. And let me be clear, like, I am not looking to be the most driven guy in the room. I've always sought to, who is my Golden State Warriors? Like, I want to go and join a team that is just as driven, you know what I'm saying? Or just as whatever that is, you know what I'm saying? But I am usually the person that people look at like, hey man, you should take a nap. Like, so I don't really know many people, directly who went through those kinds of things. It was usually just me.
So you decided to wrap it up in New York. You come back to Memphis. That was like a direct route, kind of a direct thing.
Definitely drove back in the Saab. You know what I'm saying?
In the Saab.
In the Saab.
Nice.
How long before? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You're saying?
How long before Unapologetic?
Oh man, Unapologetic took some years before I developed that after getting back here, because I had to go through another downtime. It always gets worse before it gets better. I had to go through another downtime. It was a good time. I got back here, and initially I didn't want to do anything local. I didn't want to do anything musically here. I just wanted to continue working with the clients that I was working with abroad. About 70% of my work could be done via the internet. At this point, I was heavy into licensing music and selling music to companies and stuff like that. So just further into just generating passive income. That was all I cared about. Stay in the basement and keep doing that. Somebody took me out to a hip hop show here, which I didn't want to go to at first, and I was like, I'm good. I didn't, I just didn't have any interest. And Neem, you need to come out. You need to come out. All right, cool. I got out. It was at this photo studio. Dude named Darius Williams. He had a show there. And I went there and I checked it out. And it was not what I was expecting at all. The people in the crowd is not what I was expecting at all. It was okay. I left there thinking something, Memphis had changed, or I had changed, or both. But I just remember thinking, like, man, I want to see something like this again. Some of the rappers that I heard and some of the beats that I heard, and it was kind of inspiring in the sense of, man, these are people clearly out here trying something new, and you can see it on their faces that they're proud to, like, be turning this corner.
About what year was this, you think?
This is 11 or 12. 11 to 12 it was. And so I was just like, all right, cool, you know what I'm saying? I'll continue to check this stuff out. That's where I met Pro, who was a rapper here. I met him and Cities of Eve, I think in the same night. So I just started to, one day, Pro and I, we got together and we got up in the studio. And, actually, let me be clear. I went and picked him up from an apartment he was living in with about 48 other people. And we were driving back. It was crazy. We were driving back to my house, where I had a studio. And he said, man, Mad Beats, I got this song I want you to hear. You know what I'm saying? I was like, all right, cool. You got it on you? He's like, yeah. I was like, all right, cool, play it. At the time, I had one of the radios with like the USB port on it. So he had a flash drive. So he hooks it up. And he says, go to Monday morning. So, all right, cool. Go to Monday morning, I hit play. I'm thinking I'm going to hear the song. Nah, man. This was just the beat. This man performed the whole song for me in the car. Like, turned to the side, did the verse, did the hook. He did extra ad-libs at the end. When the song faded, his voice faded. Like,
oh, yes.
It was, I was like, and so I'm driving like, what? What is this? And I love when I see stuff like that, because in my mind, like, okay, this is somebody who...
There's the pooch.
Yes. This is somebody who, I see that detail again.
Yeah.
I see that like serious thought into this. I also see a level of knowing his craft to where he could perform a whole song with no hiccups, no, verse, hook, verse, bridge, outro, right? While sitting in a car, twisted, turning to his left. I was impressed, to say the least. We got back to the studio and he started, playing me more stuff and telling me what he was up to. And I was like, man, I think we should work together on something,
cool.
And we did. And that turned into this whole big thing where he had a crew and his own team and stuff, and he would bring them in, and we kind of all became a big family, working together. And I was essentially I housed it all. I would record it, mix it, produce some of it, and he was the guy. I think Pro was like the chosen kid from Memphis. He was definitely the most popular person in the city in terms of rap, and so he had a bright future ahead of him, and so it was a movement. It was a legit movement at the time, but there were some cancerous things in that team. So let's go quickly back to New York, right?
Yeah.
I told you guys about feeling alone and the loneliness factor, right? Well, extremes often push you to the other extreme, right? Extremes, being lonely, oftentimes sets you up to allow people around you that shouldn't be around you, right? Because you don't want to be lonely, right? And so these people were good people, no doubt, but there were definitely some issues in terms of, how bad you want it, whether that means showing up on time, showing up at all, whether that means doing your job, whether that means being mindful, considerate, all the things that I was as an intern. It was the opposite of what I was dealing with in, some of these young guys who would come in and so forth. And so that had to come to an end, to put it in a brief way. That had to come to an end, and it came to a very frustrating end for me because this was, again, another time where, I had invested time and energy and resources into something that I believed in that didn't get to the next level, and at this point I'm down on myself again, because, for years people were telling me that, that I was this talented producer and this and this and this and so forth. And I had known that being a producer was bigger than making a beat or recording a record. A producer, when I think of master producers, I think of Dr. Dre, you know what I'm saying? And with Dr. Dre, when you're thinking about him being masterful, it's not just the music, it's who he chose.
Right.
It's his ability to pick out talent and to get somebody to the next level, right? I mean, you can go back to NWA, to Kendrick Lamar, to whoever, RZA, from Wu, same thing, Pharrell, same thing, these guys were all masterful at everything around the product, and I felt like this was another, lost opportunity or lost time.
Had this taken time away from your licensing?
Oh yeah, definitely.
You definitely had
when I go into something,
right,
I'm in. When I believe in something, I'm in. So yeah, I had stopped doing my own personal music. I had stopped doing. I had generated enough passive income and things like that to where I could do it, but I had stopped the creation. I had stopped, going into that or whatever, all because I believed in this movement and creating something that, building an artist up that would eventually get to the next level,
right,
and further everything, and so that I was very frustrated about that, and me and my wife would talk about it, and there were just times where I was just mad at night because I put pressure on myself to succeed at and not just comfortable levels. Like I really want to do great things. Mm-hmm. And so one day I was sitting with my man Kevin DeLebon. What up, Kev? And he was telling me. He said, "Nee, man, you can't be too down on yourself, man." I was like, "Why? Why can't I be too down on myself? What is the reason?"
That's a good comeback. Yeah. Why not?
Yeah. What's why? And he said, well, you got to look at people like Steve Jobs, people like RZA, people like, Beethoven, right? He was like, those people, they all had to be a part of, something bigger than them to create, they all had to be a part of teams or organizations or whatever, but they all chose their teams. He was like, every team you've been a part of, you were drafted into. I was just like, you're right. You're right, and he was like, as meticulous and detailed and mean as you can be. He was like, you should just pick your own team. Mm-hmm. Right? Using the kind of, using your approach to things. Right? And hold the bar at you. Not below you. Not, it's okay, hold the bar at you. People have to be dedicated, resilient, passionate, they have to, their actions must meet their words. Their word must mean something. Right? And it's not, he was like, hold the bar at you and you can build a team that you will never be disappointed in.
It's hard to ask, but
yeah.
Do you think in the team that had to break up, mm-hmm. Did you have little voices saying like, "Oh, this"? Did you ignore?
Oh yeah, definitely
the flags or maybe.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the thing. That's the thing where when I talk to people all the time about just that alone, which is like, people say they believe in themselves and that they trust themselves. Well, those are the moments to prove it. Right? Every time, and when I catch myself saying this, when I catch other people saying this, I usually make a moment of it. Hey, stop. Wait a second. What just happened there? Right? Every time somebody says, man, I knew that was going to happen, I always say, you didn't act like you knew it was going to happen. You just knew it, but you didn't put any value into it. Mm-hmm. You didn't actually follow through with that idea. So you're not valuing your own thoughts. Right? You're kind of leaning into what's either comfortable or what everybody else is doing. Right? You're not valuing your own ability to make decisions, recognize red flags, mm-hmm. and so forth. And I say that to people because I say it to myself. Mm-hmm.
And it takes those moments, like going from the mixer, going from the turntables without a mixer.
Exactly. Exactly. I could have told them 30 minutes before then, but right. I didn't. Mm-hmm. I didn't have the value in myself. Tony Touch had to get very frustrated before I actually say, "Hey, man, why don't we try something else?" And so now it's funny because now people think that. I'm very often told that it looks like every move I make is a calculated one or some part of a strategy. I have people thinking that I'm playing mind games when I just clearly forgot something or whatever, and the only reason for that is because I there's a lot of things I know what I'm doing, mm-hmm. and there's a lot of things where I don't know, but I really trust myself at this point in life. I think I think at this point in life, even when I don't know where I'm going, I know I'm gonna be happy when I get there because I trust myself. I trust my experiences, and I trust where my experiences will have me move without thought.
Right.
And so, yeah, I got, those voices were in my head, and you even saying that and pointing that out is a very passionate point that I think about often, which is to trust yourself and not, don't lose time because you didn't trust yourself. And the thing about it is just that when you see those red flags, when I see those red flags now, we have interns, and when I see those red flags now, I've had people on my team who are like, man, Neem, you sure you shouldn't have given them one more chance? Or what if it was this? Or what if it was that? Or whatever, blah. And I look at them, some of the younger people on my team, and I'm like, man, I remember when I was as nice as you. You know what I'm saying? And what I mean by that is just simply that, there's two things about it. Not only am I confident in being able to point out the red flag and say, this is wrong, we should do something about this, but I'm also, at this point in life, able to, when somebody doesn't understand the red flag, still hold on to, no, that's a red flag. Your lack of experience will not confuse me. I've been here before. Right? When maybe it'll take you some years, and you'll be able to see this red flag as clearly as I do. But that's a red flag.
Right.
And that's that.
That's life experience.
Yeah.
I mean, that's hard. You can read that in the book. Stephen Covey can point things, but until you've actually been through the crucible of that and experienced that, it's like, oh, yeah, here we are.
I love that book.
That's great.
Yeah.
So, Jonathan, you got. I know you have copious notes over here.
I've got some notes. We're actually knocking them out.
This is amazing, by the way. I'm just thoroughly enjoying this.
Yeah.
Are we doing good on time?
Yeah, we're fine.
This is beautiful. Okay.
But that was all the preface to Unapologetic. That's what I mean. To get to your question about when did Unapologetic happen,
right?
It was what happened and what I learned in New York, the team that I went through here, and then when it became time to build Unapologetic, I had to build the team. And talent would not be one of the top requirements, because talent was never my top thing. It would be everything else. Character over everything. It would be, are you trustworthy? Are you passionate? Are you resilient? Are you persistent? Are you consistent? Are you considerate? Right? Do your actions match your words?
So when you were talking about red flags earlier, you're typically going that direction?
Yeah, definitely.
With that? All right.
Yeah, okay. When I see, sometimes you see insecurity. Insecurity can be a poison or it can be the fuel, and sometimes you have to weed out which way it's going to go in someone when you see it, when you're building a team, and those can be red flags. But the first person I decided, the idea I love to use is, when it comes to a party, the DJ is not the most important person. The most important person is the first person to dance. Right? The first person to actually do a two-step, that's the most important person in the room.
Absolutely.
So in the room of Unapologetic, I was definitely the DJ. Kid Maestro was definitely the first person to dance. Young guy, extremely dedicated, extremely focused, extremely passionate, clearly versed in how to go about doing something when you really want it. You know, I had never met anybody like him before him, especially at such a young age. He was 20 at the time when I met him, and you know, one night at a beat showcase thing I did across from Inglewood, some venue, he came up to me and he said, "Hey man, I want to learn from you." "How?" I said, "Hey man, take my number, hit me up tomorrow." He hit me up tomorrow morning. He said, "Yeah, when can I come through?" I was like, "I don't know. You can come through now if you want to." You know, he's not here today, but every other day since then he's been here.
So what are you working on now with him?
With him, I mean, he's what is he not working on? He's part of everything I do.
Is this a good point to brag on Memphis? I know we always.
Hey, we can edit this later.
So
we can play
you're on point in New York. You're doing it. You have to make some life adjustments. Some people could say coming to Memphis would be, well, you're it's a few notches down, because New York is the land of New York, right? But can you not testify that there is folks here that can get it done in Memphis?
Oh yeah, I built a company off of that idea, so I will 100% testify to it, because that's the whole idea behind Unapologetic, which is that MacGyver. Just the idea that you may not recognize the resources around you, but they're there, right? Are you willing to do what's necessary to discover them?
And could you not say this could be this ethos could not be replicated in other cities? I mean,
man, let me tell you something, man. My mom was born in one continent, raised in another, and then moved to North America, where she was in Canada at first. Then she came down to the United States. Thanks to my mom, I have traveled all over this world. I have never seen another place like this place. And people would, oftentimes when I tell people about Memphis, they'll be like, "Yeah, the South." And I'd be like, "Nope, let's stop right there." Memphis. There is no other place in the South like Memphis. Memphis is completely different from the quote unquote South. Memphis is Memphis. Are you from Tennessee? No, I'm from Memphis. Like, let's be clear.
Right.
Like, this is a different place here.
Could you call this the Austin of Tennessee? You know, like, because people, Texans would say Austin's is its own animal.
Sure.
Right.
Definitely.
Is that too much a stretch? I don't
New Orleans is its own animal.
Yeah,
too.
well, New Orleans.
The rest of Louisiana is like, nah.
Yeah. That's what I've heard. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, do you want to start talking about gear? Do you want to start talking about? I mean, here we are. We've assembled the team.
And we can talk about Better Left Unsaid.
Oh yeah, man. So Better Left Unsaid was definitely a product of this journey as well. Better Left Unsaid is the first project, cohesive, anything I've ever made in my life where I didn't ask anybody for advice when I made it. Now, when you say that immediately, that almost sounds like maybe an arrogant or cocky thing. But that's actually a very scary thing. I have always had people around me when I made music. Like, I'm not the guy who needs to be alone when I make music. I'm just usually people walking in and out the room, all kind of stuff's happening, and I'm making music, and I'm usually looking at somebody's where they nod their head, or if they're not nodding their head, I'm looking, at all these things that are helping me make this music, And so to make music where I could lean on no one's approval was scary, right? I had to believe, this was the driving thought behind Better Left Unsaid. Does this feel like me? That's all I cared about. I didn't care if it was well-rounded. I didn't care if it was, I didn't care. I didn't care about none of that stuff. All I cared about was that when I hit play, that I feel like I was hearing an audible, a sonic version of me.
You weren't worried about what people thought. You weren't worried about.
I wasn't. I didn't care about none of that stuff.
There weren't the anxieties of like, I hope this sells. I hope this. You were just like, look, I enjoy this. This is this is good.
Well, like you said,
I like this.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, sonically, like you just said. I mean, I read in an interview where, I mean, you were using sounds in your room.
Yeah.
Like fingers tapping on the desk, or
that's all I cared about. I was in. I was just. It was a new thing for me to like. It was a new thing for me to trust myself that much.
Mm.
You know,
you went full on artist.
I didn't. I went full on artist. And you know what's funny was just that's the best way to put it.
Mm.
That's the best way to put it. I think before Better Left Unsaid, I was a producer.
Okay.
I really do. And then after Better Left Unsaid, I became an artist. Or during it, I became an artist because.
Conversation of hierarchy continues.
Hey.
You know, I was. I didn't care if things didn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
As long as it felt like me. Like, I mean, the song James, the first version of James on Better Left Unsaid, I recorded on my iPhone. I was just messing around. You know, I mean, I was actually trying to write a song. I was actually trying to write a song for my son. And I didn't have a son at the time. I was years before I had a son. I didn't know what my son would be named. So I just, maybe he'd be Junior or something. So let's call it James. It's not actually me. It's about my son. He's Nova James now. So I don't know. But yeah, so I when I wrote that, I first recorded it on the iPhone. I just hit record, put the phone up here, and I played it. And I was driving around, and I was just listening to it in the car. And I was like, man, I really like this. Like, I was like, man, it's not like a technical masterpiece or anything, but wherever my mind was, it caught that. It caught that moment.
Do you remember what you were listening to at the time? I know I remember that track, and right the first time I heard it, I remember thinking impressionistic colors. You know, that's. Mm-hmm. I don't know what if you're.
I mean, I remember at the time I was just. I mean, I'm always on some jazz stuff. Like that's where my mind stayed. So I remember. I remember specifically studying like a specific kind of chord. Right. It's kind of like these chords where I need like the complete width of my hands to play. But I just remember maybe like a week before I played that, I spent like 12 hours straight. Of course, this is definitely pre-fatherhood. I spent like 12 hours straight, literally from like 9 a.m. to like after 9 p.m. Like, I had learned a chord that I loved, and like, you don't understand. Like, I'm. This is almost a tearful moment for me. But I had learned a chord that I loved, and it was a feeling that I used to get as a kid that at the time I would just call it magical. I didn't know what it was, and I remember when I was first working with instrumentalists, I used to be like, "Man, play something that sounds magical." That's all I cared about. It sounded magic. If it sounds magical, I'm gonna fall in love with it, you know. And I remember thinking like, man, like how do you play that? Like what is that? And I just remember one day I was in here, I was going through like jazz chord progression tutorials on YouTube or something, and I was like, this guy played a chord and it sounded close to it. I was like, oh. And I hit pause, like, oh, and I had to take it over here, and I was like, what is this exactly? And I just had to feel it out a little bit, and I added some stuff here and there, and I was like, oh. And I learned how to play that chord, you know, in every key.
Yeah.
And so I went up and down the piano playing that chord for 12 hours straight. And I just remember at the end of the day, my hands hurt, like, but I just remember thinking, like, I figured it out. I got it, you know. And then like a week later, I made James. So there was, like, I think, like 2 of the chords in there were me kind of doing inversions of that stuff. But yeah, I remember I was driving around listening to it, man, and I just was really in love with how it felt. So I was just like, man, you know, when I get back to the studio, I'm gonna record it for real. So I set this John up, passed it into the Titan, you know, went into Pro Tools, played it. And I was like, this doesn't feel the same, man. This doesn't feel as good. This feels like I wrote a piano song. This doesn't feel like a moment anymore. You know? And then I was like, all right, let me adjust some settings on here. Throw in the fake amp button. You know what I'm saying?
It's got a tube.
Yeah, you know, and still all that stuff. And it still didn't sound right, man. And then I just turned my phone on and hit record again and played it again. And then it sounded magical again. And I was just like, all right, man, I'm not going to put a phone recording on this project. I got to find some kind of median, you know what I'm saying? You know, something. And so what I did was I just mic'd the room and recorded it in the phone at the same time. And then this makes absolutely no sense at all. As an engineer, I'm just like, what are you doing? You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But, you know, I put it all in Pro Tools and just put it together, did a couple of EQ, couple of compressions here and there. And it got, I mean, like you can hear the chair in the room. You can hear me breathing. You can hear, you know, all that stuff that made it this very imperfect thing, but it felt like it captured a moment in time.
Wow. Yeah.
I have a cousin. His name is Sanat. His name is Kit. And what up, Kit? And he is the most, like, I feel like everybody needs this person in your life. Something where you're super excited about it, and you bring it to them, and they're like, cool. You know, and they just kind of just don't care, you know what I'm saying? And he is historically that person for everybody. You know, you just play him something, and he's like, He just goes on.
Just tears the rug right from under
you. And you just be like, ah! And when I was done with Better Left Unsaid, I sent it to him. And he called me up the next day, and he was like, man, that's my favorite thing you've ever made.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, what? Hey, hold on. I hit record. I was like, yo, say that again. Because no one has ever heard him say anything like that before, you know. And so that let me know, like, whatever lacked in any sort of well-roundedness or, you know, extremely thought out thing was balanced by sincerity, you know, and vulnerability, I think. And I made that before Unapologetic, but that was without a doubt the thing that ushered in Unapologetic, because what I cared about most was that it was me. And it was that mindset, it was my confidence in that mindset that set the stage for the culture of Unapologetic.
That's pretty deep, actually. I mean, that's a whole different mindset than making music bed library.
Yeah.
Although that stuff has to be good.
Yeah.
It has to be quality. But you're talking about a different. You're talking about the stuff like when I used to read old Mix magazine interviews of the glory days of studio of like, well, shoot, Jonathan. Remember you sent me that Gear Sluts thread on the Marvin Gaye session.
Oh yeah, right.
We were getting nerdy talking about like
Shout out to Gear Sluts.
talking about what was the configuration of the string section in tracking some of this Motown and the dude who was on the session piped in and was like, well, I was there and here's what we did.
Yeah, and here's the mics we used.
And it was so, and he was talking like, we double tracked the, he was getting very technical and it was awesome. You're just taking that on, and he said, and on playback, Marvin Gaye cried. Like when he heard the playback of what's going on, when he first heard it come together, he said, like you just read it, you're like, oh, that's lovely. That is just, and so to have like, with all the pressures of trying to like sell stuff and pay bills, and you got these things like at the top of it, we're going for this. It's elusive. It's kind of out there, but it's also this tangible feeling of like, oh, that's authentic. I don't know what word would you use? Magical.
Yeah, I think. I mean, this is for you guys listening. You can't see this, but,
yes,
but this is the mission statement for Unapologetic, and in short, I just truly believe that. I've met a lot of technically great artists, technically great instrumentalists, and so forth. But I can't explain what it is, James Brown had it. You know what I'm saying? What it is when you just, I don't know what it is. Just you just feel it. There's no real explanation for it. Like, and it comes at the hands of a certain edginess in terms of like, it comes at the hands of a certain level of artistic honesty, that ushers in this. You know what it is you allow people to see themselves in it. You know what I'm saying? Like, because you're opening up in a way that is hard to do. I've heard a lot when it comes to rappers, singers, or whatever. I've heard a lot of artists who are technically not good at what they do, right? But because they're saying and doing things that people wish that they could say and do openly, they become champions for those people. Right now, if you were to multiply that ability by actual skill and talent, right, then you create that kind of, those kind of artists that are cultural shifts. They can be sincere and truly artistic, and at the same time, like, sell records and and
at the same time, honesty and being an artist doesn't equal being perfect.
No, not at all.
And if you're buying,
not at all. I feel like, okay, I'll say this: I can't speak for every genre or people who come up listening to every genre, but I feel like in the, like, especially kids who grew up on rap, that's not known enough. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like, because specifically for my generation, where we saw rap go from the streets, edgy, rough, and whatever, blah, blah, to a multi-million-dollar corporation once it got super polished up and packaged up to be, sold, right? It's this idea that, like, you have to be this thing to be able to be an artist, right? You're not a real artist if you're not. The idea of artist, it's funny. Artist is not perfect, risky, vulnerable, right.
Honesty is warts and all.
Yeah, it's walking in the dark. It's, it's funny. I love that. I love that, that people understand this. But I do think that there are certain cultures that that are less aware of that than others. You know, I really, and I think it's just because of what the music industry has done. I don't want to get too deep because this is a whole nother area of thought, but I do think, that some of that is intentional. I do think that there are certain kinds of music made by certain kinds of people that allow a wider range of expression be successful.
Mm-hmm.
If I want to be transparent about it, I honestly feel like if a guy who looked like me said the things Eminem said when he said it, that would have never happened. Never. And then that person, the guy who looked like me saying the things Eminem said, would have never been on a rock and roll station. Eminem would have never been on pop radio. Eminem was, and so you have certain kinds of people who have examples of being able to say whatever they think and feel and be successful. And then you have certain people who are saying, or certain industries that are saying, look like this, sound like this, and do this to be successful. And this is this small. Right. Now, the industry is a little bit different since then because now you can go directly to your fans. You can be whatever you want to be successful. And you have people who went platinum and have never been on the radio before. So we're in a different part of the industry. But, I remember when all that happened and I was like, yeah, this is interesting.
Could you say that, and I use the word anxiety, not being held hostage by anxieties regarding your creativity.
Yeah.
We could say maybe being fearless. Like when I think of Mono Neon, I definitely think of like he's just fearless, and how, just from his aesthetic of what he wears, what he's doing, and I was, it's just beyond him being a ferocious musician.
Yeah.
Technically, as just but there's also this thing of like, it's not reckless abandon either. Like he's focused. But that, and not wanting to spill off into other topics, as complicated as America is, it's that you can be an artist and be fearless is awesome.
I think I think artists like Mono Neon are extremely important right now. Period, but definitely coming out of Memphis. I think what he's doing, shout out Mono Neon, he actually just pulled my man off him to perform with him in New York in a couple weeks. So shout out to Unapologetic, you know what I'm saying, doing that. Yeah, man, that kind of anxiety attached to the creative or just the economy of being a successful artist is tragic. You know what I'm saying? It's, again, especially in Memphis, where the idea of being an artist or being creative is enough to not only survive, but maybe even thrive. Like what you're creating is valuable enough. It's here, it's like a joke. I remember when I was first telling people I was a producer. That's what's up, man. What are you doing during the day? Produce? Like, it was like, what is here? When I was first telling people here, and, it's here, there's just, and it's real, there's this undervaluing of artistry in a way that, okay, so I think this splits into two things. You have the artists who take on 1 million jobs, right? Or instrumentalists or whatever. They take on 1 million jobs to stay doing their art as their job, right? But then very often I found in those cases, there is a dissatisfaction and the ability to truly be yourself, because you're becoming a tool for these other things, right? You're playing in somebody else's band, or you're playing for this thing, or blah, 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 and you're just a guy who can technically do something, not being an artist, right? That's one way that this happens. The other way is just that somebody's like, man, you know, I'm going to be an artist, right? And I'm going to make it happen, right? And one of the other problems that I find very often in Memphis is that, at least from the top down, this place seems to love to go back into the past, right? Nostalgia often plays in its decisions on what's valuable and what isn't, you know?
Yeah.
And so when an artist decides, hey, I want to be an artist in Memphis, well, I hope you sound like Aretha Franklin, or
Right,
I hope,
exactly.
you know what I'm saying? You know, and so that's why I say mono neon is extremely important. Mono neon don't sound like, you don't look or sound like nothing you've ever seen in your life.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And he is clearly winning. He's clearly doing what he wants to do. Yo, when I saw him on the I could have cried. When I saw him on the Billboard stage, and this man had on the mono neon outfit, like everybody else had on like a, wear this. And he had on what he wanted to wear. I was like, man, Orange Man, I'll stand up, because I was like, man, I can't wait for the dude to come back home, because I'm gonna give him the biggest hug. You know what I'm saying? But
And I've following you on Facebook. You've mentioned this, to where, you know, the hopeful byproduct of your work is that Memphis is not just known for Elvis and barbecue and
yeah,
Beale Street being, like, I've been in town now 6 years, and when I meet tourists coming in, and which is actually, you know, a testimony to the power, the good side of nostalgia. Like, where I've met a guy from Wales who, when he got divorced, wanted to come and start his healing in Memphis because he wanted to go to Sun Studios.
yeah,
You know, he didn't go to St. Louis. He didn't go to New York. He wanted to come to Memphis, and
yeah,
which I thought was profound. But
yeah,
to you know, I tell people, you know, there are some brilliant artists, or like brilliant bands, and then there's kind of like the tragic, you know, what would you call a stereotype, or some kind of maybe what you think Beale Street would be.
definitely.
You know, and so, like, I would say, I would tell people, if Memphis could rise to its renown,
Yeah.
be
See, that,
amazing.
the beautiful thing about that is, you know, you got your guys who are coming in and they're like, man, I got to come to Memphis to, you know, go to Sun Studio to start this healing. The beautiful thing about Memphis is just that Memphis is, you know, the cheap place to live. You know, you can survive, you can do your thing here and so forth. But we have historic visibility. You know, we have people celebrate the things we created in other continents, and they look at Memphis like, you know, like it's the home of greatness. You know, and you know, I want to make sure that I'm clear on this, which is that I too am nostalgic. Like I love looking back. I love listening to old records. I love listening to what happened and why it happened. I draw inspiration from the fact that it happened down the street. You know, but you know, my favorite producer ever is, you know, hip hop producer is Jay Dilla. You know what I'm saying? And the thing that I took from Dilla most was that, you know, while Dilla had his own, Dilla would name his influences and then press play. And so you could hear his influences, but Dilla left his influences behind. Like, it was clear that Dilla didn't seek the approval of his influences. He went further. In fact, you know, if you listen to the early stuff he did versus the stuff he did just before he passed, like, the guy never stopped going, you know, pushing forward, and trying new stuff out, and so forth. So I just love the idea that, like, to him, being like Pete Rock meant trying things nobody had tried before. Right? And so to me, being like Dilla means to just go with my first mind and to do things because I just want to do them. Not necessarily to go backwards or to celebrate the past. You know, when we look at the history of Memphis, that's what this place is about, right? This place never, when you look at Stax and you look at the stuff that was being created at the time, we were edgy, we were different, we were not fitting in. You know, when you look at early Memphis rap, same thing. I can't believe that the whole industry sounds like early Memphis rap now. But the people in Memphis didn't care. They were on their own vibe, you know. And so what I think is what my goal is in terms of sound and music and art here is just the idea that, man, sure, there might be a quote unquote Atlanta sound, but no one is surprised when anything comes out of Atlanta. I mean, you can hear, you know, whether it can be, you know, Outkast or Future or whoever, you know what I'm saying, or Janelle Monáe or whatever, you know, there's a whole bunch of ranges of things that can come out of Atlanta, and you're just like, yeah, of course, it's Atlanta, yeah. You know, and that's the thing that Memphis has. Yeah, you don't have to build it, we just have to expose it. It's already there. You know, that this place created me. And I wear a mask and do weird stuff, so you know. So this place is already creating diverse you know, products of art and people, but oftentimes internally and externally we're seen as blues,
Right.
barbecue,
constantly letting the past define.
right. And it's we have to open that door, and that's something that I hope Unapologetic does its part in.
I was thinking how to, like, I know my folks are going to listen to this. At least I hope, Mom, Dad, I hope you do. and so, you know, what images come to their mind when they hear the word rap or an R&B and whatever? And I'm trying to think, like, how you mentioned Dilla, and, you know, even myself, rap, I'm more definitely a melodic R&B jazz head, and rap is still kind of, you know, I'm very peripheral with it. But when I listen to your music and when I listen to Dilla, I would describe it, and you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but Jonathan used the word impressionism, this type of color, this type of collage making.
It seems more textural than, you know, 100% rhythmic driven. Not that.
This assembly of like, and how you mentioned earlier of like it's important to be exposed to just as large a collection of music and sounds as possible, to where you this sound design, and to where you're pulling these things all in and assembling this beautiful, lovely, and beats. Just, you know, even the term beats, I remember I think like just a drum machine and just an 808 or something, but you know, the actual this bed.
Yeah, it's funny how that term's evolved. I mean,
oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's.
I even thought today of, like, is there such a thing as prog rap? Yeah,
I want to make that.
Prog, you know,
I'd be down with trying to make that.
of something that is like
You've been revisiting your prog rock.
Oh, I listened to this Yes record just the other day. I thought, holy cow, that is, you know, nerdy rap. Is there such a thing as nerd rap? Is
Yeah,
that
there
right?
definitely is. Yeah, that's what I used to listen to. 'Cause I was a nerd, listening to rap. But there definitely is nerd rap. It's just, for years it was called underground hip hop. It was backpack rap. You know what I'm saying? It was like the descendants of like Mos Def and Kweli. You know, I can play you some of it. It's dope. You know, nerd rap where you hear like science and equations and stuff. That's the kind of stuff that I used to love, that stuff, man.
Oh my goodness.
But not like it definitely, man, I'm all about textures. I'm all about, I think sound is just audible emotion. I think that's all it is. It's like it's the sound of your emotions, you know. And so for me, I'm just trying to get directly to your emotions. That's it. Like, I'm not trying to dance or have anything, you know, that's superficial. Like, let's just intravenous. Let's intravenous. Let's go straight to the vein of emotion. And so I feel like this is probably a good segue. I feel like the vocal version of that is Cameron Bethany. I had never heard anybody like him, but he does with his voice what I try to do with my music.
So with that, sorry, ran across a couple terms in previous interviews, like new progressive Memphis, progressive soul.
For Cam or just for me?
I mean, well, that's kind of my question. Yeah. I was wondering if you could kind of unpack either one of those terms.
Well, I mean, I don't directly identify with any of those terms myself. I think, I mean, I'm just unapologetic. That's me. I'm saying I make mad beats. Cam, he developed a term to you know, for his own style called mod fusion, which is essentially
mod 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 fusion.
Yeah. Which is essentially just a combination of all the things that he's heavily influenced by, and he sings. Words are optional for Cameron. Words are optional. Let me be clear, man. Like, I have never. Okay, it's a very quick story. Cam hit me up one day, just after I'd finished Better Left Unsaid and before Unapologetic ever existed. He hit me up and he says, I had met him once. He had come in to do backgrounds on the Barnes Family's album, and the Barnes Family were recording a song with me, and he had come in, and we didn't say anything to each other. It wasn't like we had a long conversation. Just a very, how you doing? And he went in the booth and did his thing, and that was it. I saw him at a party. We didn't say anything to each other. Months later, he hit me up and he said he wanted me to produce a record for him. And we had a meeting here. He told me his influences and where he wanted to go with it. I was immediately intrigued with the direction of it because the things that he mentioned were just things I love to listen to, you know. And so I'll admit, like, at the time, I was definitely still in my Better Left Unsaid zone. So, which was just very much me, like, and trying to absorb and not trying to get caught up in anything else. I felt like up until that point, I had been used in so many other people's things that I just wanted to spend time in my world. But when he said those things, it just made me think, like, okay, maybe I don't have to leave my world for this one. Like, sure, you know, all right, let's try it out. And he came in, like a week later, he came by, and I hadn't even made the beat yet. And and I was just like, all right, cool. So I made the beat like 30 or 45 minutes before he got there. And he came in, I pressed play, he loved it. And so they worked on all they did that day was the hook. He brought in it was like he was a rapper the way he came in with an entourage. Like, but Cam's entourage is not a rap entourage. Cam's entourage is a whole bunch of very well-dressed people that just come in and just like have the greatest clothes and colors on, and you know, they talking about incense and stuff, man. You know what I'm saying? And just various stuff like that. It's like, you know what I'm saying?
That's great.
And for me, you know, being that's just not, you know, it was new for me. And so at the same time, while I'm like, man, this dude can really sing, and I'm excited. At the same time, I'm also taking this all in, like, man, these guys are interesting, you know. And anyway, so they lay the hook down and they leave. And I remember after they left, I remember listening to the hook over and over and over again, and I was just like, man, this guy, man, there's something different about this guy. You know. And my wife, she sings, so the real test was she got home later, and I was like, hey, Marie, come listen to this guy. Now, let me be clear. My wife is the most shutting you down wife ever. I will be making something and be like, this sounds hard. And she'd be like, I don't really. I'll be like,
baby, no.
Yeah, she just, she would keep it real G with me, especially with a singer because she sings. So, you know, if you don't hit that note right, trash. and I played the Cam song for her, and she was like, who's this? I was like, this guy named Cam. Like, he's kind of out here. And I just remember just feeling like, I think I have something special here. But the thing that I remember thinking the most was just that, like, I wasn't even listening to the words. Like, it was just the way he moved his voice. I don't think I've ever heard anybody use their voice like that.
I think, like in jazz terms, like you think of a horn, like the phrasing.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
Yeah,
it was his ability to move in and out of harmonies in a certain kind of way. It's hard to describe, but we finished that song. No. Okay, so I just remember because of the way he was singing, it inspired me to add another piece to the song. So I made up this whole second part of the song before he even came in one day, and I was just like, yo, man, I just made this. What do you think? I played it for him, and he was just like, yo, it's crazy. I was like, yeah, man, you should just do some harmonies on this, man. Like, don't even say any words. Like, just oh, ah, ooh, whatever. Just fill it out, like be an instrument, you know. And he did it, and it was then that I was like, yo, this guy can speak to you without saying any words. You know, again, my wife sings. I've been recording singers, you know, at this point for years, you know, some of the most well-known singers on this planet. And I had never heard anybody not say words and mean so much.
Wow.
And that's what struck me about him. Like, and then I saw him perform. And I just remember, you know, a room full of hot, sweaty people, excited and just moving and blah, blah, blah. And then he started to sing and how everybody just kind of just stopped moving.
Oh, yeah.
And I was just like, and let me be clear, he wasn't saying any words. He was just using his voice live box and creating like harmonies, you know, and he was just doing oohs and ahs and layering them in a way to where people were just kind of like mesmerized. And I was just like, this is the guy. He's got something that's different. But even then, even once I realized that this dude had a unique talent that I had never seen before, it wasn't good enough. Nope. Had to test his character. So I set him up on this kind of regimen of like, he had to be here at a certain time, and you know, he was trying to figure out a way to do a second song with me, but he couldn't afford it. So he was trying to stretch out the payments and blah, 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 whatever. And so I told him, I said, well, look, let's do this. I'll allow you to pay me this, but you got to come in and help me on this song. Like, I'm working on stuff for licensing still, blah, 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 whatever. Come in and do this, blah, blah, whatever. And we'll work it out that way. All right, cool. You know what I'm saying? And so, you know, throughout this process, which is about 3 or 4 months, you know, of course, we're testing out everything, like, you know, basic stuff like being punctual, you know, tact, being considerate, being passionate, being resilient, like, you know, and so forth, being forward thinking, right? and we're just testing out his character, man. And at the end of the 3 months or 4 months, now he's unaware of all of this stuff. Like me and Kid when he's gone, I'm totally talking to Kid like, man, I really hope this dude has like all the other stuff, because the talent is there. But if he doesn't have the other stuff, then it doesn't matter.
Wow.
You know. And
should you say that again to our listeners? What was that? What is?
It's real. You know, I've seen, you know, the way I love to put it is, I've seen people as good as Jordan never get there because they didn't have the other things. They didn't have the necessary things. That's my wife. She just walked in. So, you know, we had him going through this kind of regimen to see if he had it. And at the very end of it, he comes up to me and he says, we were out there in the living room, and he says to me, Neem, I want to talk to you, man. Yo, man, like, I want to do this EP, but I really want to do something different, you know? I want to push forward and like try to create something that's mine in a way that I never have before, you know? And like, I just really, you know, he really spoke to like being vulnerable in his music in a way, in sincerity. He was pushing past a lot of self-doubt, not just musically, but with his family, with his personal life. And so it's all in his album. He talks about all of it. And, you know, and he just wanted to get it out of his system in a project that him and I created. And that was totally where this Unapologetic was, where I was. It was this new thing of like, nah, let's unapologetically be ourselves in a way that even makes us uncomfortable, scares us at the thought of saying these things out loud. Like, you know.
Not following a script?
Nah, let's not try.
Write our own story.
Let's do, you know. And I was just like, I remember Kid Maestro was sitting to the left of me, or to the right of me. And when he said those things, I just kind of looked at him and just laughed, like, all right. You know, those are those moments when you just kind of look up and you're just like, all right, I get it. You know? All right, so we need to become something greater than this, because this setup's too clear. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
This is not a mysterious way that the Lord had moved. This was a very straightforward and transparent way, and I must accept it. You know what I'm saying? And so yeah, that was Cameron was the second person in the club. I was a DJ. Kid Maestro was the first person to dance, and then Cameron was the talent, and those were the bars. Right? It was me, Kid Maestro, and Cameron. That's how everything pretty much started with that. Yeah.
So if we're that's fantastic. If we're coming to like where Unapologetic is today, State of the Union today, we're again, like we mentioned, we're in the studio right now. This obviously, and this aesthetically beautifully appointed, personally appointed studio. That where how would you describe things today?
Today, Unapologetic in a month and a half turns 3, and today we're in a great place. We've done some amazing things. You know, I can go down the like accomplishments list thing, but I think by far the things that I'm most proud of is how we've grown as a family. The things we've learned about each other and ourselves in the process. how the core of us is still here, and we're together all the time. Monday is kind of like, Monday is my like I'm here alone day, but every other day it's like a zoo in here, and it's just, you know, people doing cool stuff, and we're now we just recently released Cameron's project, and now we're getting everybody on tour. We're getting everybody on the road. Everybody's about to go out and start meeting people in their own cities. And man, there's some things that I want to speak on that I can't speak on, but there's just a lot of really cool things.
Good momentum, you're saying?
Very good momentum.
Awesome. Yeah.
Very good momentum right now.
Pretty cool app. By the way.
Thank you. Yeah, the app is actually transforming. Actually, you know, Unapologetic, we obviously created by a musician, but Unapologetic has become Unapologetic Visual, Unapologetic the app, Unapologetic World, Uncover, which is our media. We have a team of about 4 journalists now that are capturing parts of Memphis that have never been exposed, and we're showing it in the app. You know, we're expanding in various ways. We have garments now. Garments is our clothing line. It's doing very well. We actually just re-upped on our second. We're actually going to release our second batch at Stuntaria's Volume 3, the release show at Rail Garden. So we have the clothing line, you know, and all of this stuff, I can't go into detail, but all of this stuff is about to be elevated in a way that I think is going to allow us to do our part in that exposing. I don't want to say change. Exposing. The change already happened. Right? Exposing of what has happened and the versatility and what can go on here in Memphis. So Unapologetic is in a great place. We have artists like A Weirdo from Memphis, who is always pushing the boundaries of artistry. You want to talk about being an artist, that dude is an artist, which is why I think him and Mono Neon get along so well. This fall, me and Mono Neon's joint project drops, which I'm super looking forward to. Shout out to Hot Cheetos, recent release. So we got that. Yeah, man, and just really expanding the idea of it, because the music is just a product of the idea. The idea is the biggest point. You know, the idea is the biggest thing that we want to spread, and that we want people to find themselves in. You know, we're not doing all this stuff just to make a dope record or to be popular musicians. You know, if I had it my way, you know, 5 to 10 years from now, people will have a distant memory about a guy with a mask on. And they'll know Cameron Bethany, they'll know A Weirdo from Memphis, they'll know whoever we pick up, you know, between then and now. You know, I'm not doing this for any sort of fame. It's just about helping a kid who felt like how I felt when I was growing up here. That's it.
That's great. This interview so far reminds me of that's where my mind went. Hans Zimmer, you know, the famous composer, film, just Inception, all of it. You know, he gave a master class. There's the online master classes. Yeah. And the best review of it, I haven't even seen it yet. I thought the review was great. The guy says, you need to see this, not because because of course people like music nerds want to know, like, well, what's he driving everything with, like how's he doing, like technique. Yeah. You want to be, because that's, he said, no, this master class is about his head space and like his heart space. That's what you really, I feel like this interview has been a tremendous window to just like, you know, here's the realm that's informing the actual technique and the actual music and product. It's been fantastic. Thank you.
Man, thank you guys for coming by.
Yeah.
You know.
That was beautifully said by both of you.
Man, you had a whole thing of notes there, Jonathan.
It was, we got through them so organically, and I asked, I had some points, but I mean, like I had all these questions about process, and we got to them so naturally.
Wonderful. Man, huge thanks to your family, and again to the dog who Boudreaux with the nails on the wood floor.
She was definitely adding some percussion.
I think we should try and incorporate that into a beat.
Yeah,
that was wonderful. Huge thanks again to James Dukes. I Make Mad Beats, Unapologetic.
Get that app.
Get that app. Get the app.
The Unapologetic app.
Check out all the links that we have, and look out for great things coming your way from these guys. Big thanks again to Snakebite Company, Redwire Audiovisual, and of course, our beloved
Ernestine and Hazels.
Catch you next time.